Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here, of course, and 4Ks, and today we're talking 4Ks, and we are talking Scream Factory, and Scream Factory continues to upgrade some of their older titles, and in this case I'm dealing with one upgrade and one brand new title. So it's Drag Me to Hell and Bones and All. And we'll start with the upgrade. We'll start with Drag Me to Hell, Sam Raimi's film. This, of course, came out on another Blu-ray previously, and we'll go through the differences. But I will say this is a nice upgrade, and they've done something which a lot of labels aren't doing now, which is they've added a really nice feature to this, and we'll get to that. But so let's start with Drag Me to Hell. Drag Me to Hell comes out in 2009. It stars Alison Lohman, Justin Long, and there's actually a couple other, David Paymer. And it is a film that follows Raimi working on. Well, it's funny because if you think about it, Sam Raimi himself hasn't made a ton of films since this. So this comes out in 2009. Since then, he's made Oz the Great and Powerful in 2013, and then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in 2022. He's made basically two movies since 2009, which is sad, but obviously he's been out there producing and has definitely helped along some really great films. Crawl in particular comes to mind because he's a producer on that, and I think he definitely helped Alexandre Aja make the best film he could make, and I still think that's one of the best Animal Attack horror movies in the last long time. Like, that's become a real favorite. Anyway, so it's not to say that Sam Raimi's not working. He's definitely working. But in terms of directing, he hasn't done a ton of stuff. So when he gets to 2009, he has just come off the hamster wheel of Spider-Man. I mean, let's back up. So in 1981, he makes Evil Dead, and then I guess kind of co-directs Crime Wave in 85 with the Coens, and then he makes Evil Dead 2 in 1987, followed by Darkman, followed by Army of Darkness, followed by Quick and the Dead, followed by Simple Plan, which just got a 4K, which is very exciting, and then he makes For Love of the Game, the baseball movie, which nobody talks about anymore, but which is not bad, actually. I kind of like it. I love the idea of a pitcher reflecting on his life during the course of throwing a no-hitter. I think that's a great premise. Not a great movie, but a movie that I think deserves more attention. Anyway, The Gift follows that in 2000, and that's getting a 4K also from Arrow. And then he goes into the Spider-Man stuff. So Spider-Man in 2002, Spider-Man 2 in 2004, Spider-Man 3 in 2007. And by all accounts, Spider-Man 3, which is by far the least liked of those three films, although there's always somebody who loves even the lesser liked films in a franchise. So it has its fans, but based on what you hear about that production, it was not a particularly great experience, and the movie just didn't come out how they would have liked, I guess. And so him and his team wanted to do something smaller, something horror, something that would be fun. And so they come up with this story, which is very much like, let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Night of the Demon. And if you've seen Night of the Demon, which is actually one of my favorite horror movies, I would imagine one of Sam Raimi's favorite horror movies, from 1957, directed by Jacques Tourneur, starring Dana Andrews, has a similar... I mean, if you watch the movie, you can see that he's lifting a lot of stuff from it, including, like, parchment and passing little, bits back and forth that carry the curses. But basically the idea of the movie is that Alison Lohman plays a bank teller trying to get a promotion, trying to work her way up. Her boss is David Paymer. There's another dude in the office that's also vying for a promotion. Paymer doesn't seem like that much of a fair-handed boss. He kind of sucks. But he basically lays it on her that he's like, you got to make tough decisions, meaning you got to cut some people off. You have to make some decisions that will unfortunately hurt some people. People that need loans, they need extensions, what have you. That's the stuff that costs the bank money, and he's about the bank's bottom line. And so she succumbs to that. And on one particular day, an older woman comes in and needs an extension on her mortgage, I guess. And she goes to ask her boss, and he's like, it's your call, basically. But she knows what he's told her. So she denies this old woman the loan, and the woman flips out and just begs her to change her mind, and then basically throws a curse on her. And it becomes a thing where we watch the movie and kind of see bad things start happening around her. She's dating Justin Long. She goes to meet his parents. Some things are a little funky during that, and it just sort of progresses from there. And it's very fun and has some really great sound designs and very squishy, gross stuff. And, as with Bruce Campbell, he really puts Alison Lohman through the ringer. I'm talking about Raimi in terms of just, dumping stuff on her and throwing things at her and stuff. He just likes to do that to his actors, but it does make for a pretty fun movie because this woman continues to sort of come back, and the curse is, slowly revealing itself to be pretty intense, although it takes a while to convince Justin Long, but she wants to get rid of it. So how can she get rid of it? And that's sort of the story of the movie is, how can she get rid of it? Will she get rid of it? What happens? And it is, I would say, a super fun crowd movie. If you ever get a chance to see it with a crowd, there are some great moments. In particular, I'm always reminded of a moment where the old woman is leaning over Alison Lohman, just sort of drooling this gross stuff basically into her mouth. And the audience reaction to that was just exquisite, I have to tell you. But that said, it's still a really great view at home, and it's a very enjoyable movie. I was just talking to my podcast partner, Elric Kane, and we were talking about, Simple Plan and how a lot of people always want Sam Raimi to go back to horror, and in a way, I feel like he did it with this. And so we kind of want him to go back to Simple Plan again. Make an austere, but intense, whatever you want to call Simple Plan, which gets pretty crazy in its way. Make another movie like that, but I'll take a horror movie too. But okay, so this is a nice release. Okay, so what we have here in terms of the release itself, I should mention just a few other things about the film. Edited by Bob Murawski, who's, of course, runs Grindhouse Releasing, one of the great labels out there. But Raimi had worked with him on a bunch of other stuff. So he started with him, I guess, on, let's see here, Darkman. I mean, he started with him sort of with Evil Dead, but not technically editing, I guess. So he's Darkman, Army of Darkness. He works with John Woo on Hard Target. He works with Bill Lustig on Uncle Sam. But then he comes back to Raimi with The Gift, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3, and then he does Drag Me to Hell. He's a great editor, by the way. And if you haven't seen the movie Vic, which is actually a short film, 35-minute short film directed by the late Sage Stallone, starring Clu Gulager, which is all about a down-on-his-luck actor. This is one that Elric turned me on to, actually. It's on DVD, but it's really great stuff. Highly recommended, and he edited that as well. Anyway, shot by Peter Deming, who he worked with way back on Evil Dead 2, and Deming would work his way up in low-budget features like Hollywood Shuffle, Scarecrows. He did House Party. I just love that he did these comedies like Drop Dead Fred and Son-in-Law, Joe's Apartment. But then, of course, he worked with David Lynch, Lost Highway, and some of the Scream movies, Scream 2 and 3. He's actually got a really varied career, and he's a very great cinematographer I'm a big fan of. Anyway, he worked on Scream 4 as well, but he shot this as well. So he shot Drag Me to Hell, and the music is by Christopher Young, who's a really solid composer that Raimi started working with, I think, on just one prior to this. I want to say he started on The Gift with him and then came on board to do Spider-Man 3 and then on to this, on Drag Me to Hell. And the music is definitely a player in this stew. It definitely helps the movie. Okay, so, but now let's talk about this disc. So this is a brand new 4K presentation from the, let's see here. Okay, unrated and theatrical versions, UHD, HDR, and it's a new scan from the original DI film negative approved by Sam Raimi and Bob Murawski. So that, and it's presented in Dolby Vision. So what we have here, so that's your slipcase. Your wrap is not reversible. It looks just like that. And then we have 3 discs inside. So we have our 4K, our Blu-ray with our unrated cut. The 4K has both the unrated and theatrical. So we have unrated and then theatrical on the 3 discs. And in terms of what's on them, the 4K doesn't have anything, which is great. I mean, it has 2 full features on it, but no other extras. And then the second disc, the unrated version Blu-ray, has what is, for me, the reason to upgrade, and the way that, I'm not trying to get into it with Criterion here, but like, it is unfortunate that almost all I can't think of an upgrade that they've done that has a lot of new stuff. That's just not something they're doing right now. And I get it. Budgetarily, I understand that's difficult. But it is disappointing as a consumer to realize that, you're buying basically just a new scan, which, if I love the movie, I'm certainly willing to do that. But that said, this is how you do an upgrade. So this second disc, this Blu-ray of the unrated version, has a brand new full-length 1 hour 54-minute documentary, Pardon My Curse, The Making of Drag Me to Hell, which is a really, really well done doc and is very thorough in its way, because it features a whole bunch of interviews with so it's new and archival interviews with co-writer producer Ivan Raimi, actors Alison Lohman, Dilip Rao, and Lorna Raver, DP Peter Deming, production designer Steve Sacklad, let's see here, artist Christian Cordella, makeup effects designer Greg Nicotero, editor Bob Murawski, composer Christopher Young, and more. So there's more people in this doc. And it opens really in a cool way with Bob Murawski, who is just, if you ever see a podcast that Bob Murawski is a guest on, hit play on that, because that is going to be a great conversation. He is such a cool guy, and I am such a fan of the fact that he is, such a big-time editor, but spends his time doing things like helping reassemble, old Orson Welles movies and working on the Grindhouse label and putting out movies like Hollywood 90028, which, by the way, definitely going to be on my list of favorite Blu-rays at the end of the year. Just a really great release and a fascinating movie. Anyway, so it opens with him talking about how he got in with Sam, and it kind of goes from there, and it kind of summarizes Sam's career to that point, and then kind of goes step by step through the movie. They're kind of going not day by day, but they'll have updates and different scenes that they're examining from multiple points of view, and it's just really well done. So that is what you want when you upgrade. You got the new scan, which really does look very good. Deming's cinematography looks really solid in this, and there's some nice grain, and it just really looks solid in this 4K. I really like the look of it. Both versions, but getting this doc is really the thing, right? So that's just the new stuff. Now, from the old disc, we have brought back all those features. The old disc was a 2-disc set, and it had about 5 different things. It has something called Production Diaries, which is about 35 minutes of sort of a collection of behind-the-scenes footage and various, crew and cast interviews talking about, all kinds of different, pieces of the movie. You got your productions, performances, special effects, and Justin Long is kind of like the MC, the host of it. And then there's vintage interviews. So the Production Diaries is about 35 minutes. The vintage interviews, which I think are in SD, about 34 minutes. And those are kind of the promotional, a sort of collection of promotional interviews that were done around the time of the movie was made. So those are interesting, but they're always kind of fluffy. And then beyond that, we have a couple more. I think all that stuff was sort of part of a DVD package, and as are these next 2. Hitting All the Right Notes, which is a 17-minute featurette with film composer Christopher Young, talking about how he is a big Raimi person, big fan, and had been trying to work with him for years, and sort of the process of making the score for this movie. And then one called Curses, which is 16 minutes, and it's Lorna Raber, who plays the creepy gypsy lady, Mrs. Sylvia Ganush. She shares her memories and talks about how she prepared for this role, and she's a character, so that's a really cool thing to have. And then the new one that had been added to the Blu-ray was To Hell and Back, a 13-minute brand new, at the time, interview with Alison Lohman, where she spends most of the time sort of talking about her memories of the production. She's also a big Raimi fan, has a lot of nice things to say about him. So all that is here. Okay, so you have what you had, plus the new transfer, plus the new dock. So this is why this is worth upgrading. So that's definitely a recommend for me. If you're a Raimi fan, if you're a horror fan, definitely worth grabbing. Okay, now, Bones and All, 2022. This is a first-time release from Scream. I don't think they did a Blu-ray version of this. So this 4K is their first release of the movie. I will say I'm a little more disappointed in this one in terms of extras right out the gate. That's unfortunate, but it is a good-looking 4K, and it's a good movie. So on that level, I can totally get behind picking this up. But so this one is directed by Luca Guadagnino. I always have a little trouble with his name, but he, of course, did things like, most recently, Challengers, Call Me By Your Name. He did the Suspiria remake, A Bigger Splash, a very lauded and hot filmmaker right now, I feel like. A guy who's going to make some more stuff that we're going to talk about when he makes it. But for my money, I think this is my favorite of all the movies he's done. It's just, it's a really neat story. It's based on a novel. It is based on a novel by Camille de Angelis. And it's sort of the story of first love between Marin, who's played by Taylor Russell. And she's a young woman learning how to survive on the margins of society as what the movie refers to as an eater, which is not specifically a vampire, but very much like a vampire, except kind of a cannibal vampire that needs to eat flesh. And that sort of forced her to go on the run. And so she encounters a few different folks along the way, some other eaters, one of them played by Mark Rylance as Sully in a really great performance from him, who starts as sort of a mentor character but then becomes kind of creepy, and she decides to, get the heck out of his orbit, and she runs into Lee, played by Timothée Chalamet, and he's a kind of an intense guy, definitely pushed himself outside of sight, become disenfranchised in a way, and he's a drifter. And so this is sort of a road movie, odyssey of two young people coming into their own, searching for identity, chasing beauty in America in a perilous world that can't accept them, and it lives and exists somewhere between Near Dark and Badlands, and that's a great space to live in because those are both really good movies. This is not as good as either, in my opinion, but it's very, very good. So Luca Guadagnino directs this, and the cast also includes Andre Holland, Chloe Sevigny, David Gordon Green, Michael Stolberg, and of course the aforementioned Mark Rylance. And it's just, like I said, it's a really great, I think it's set in the 80s. I can't remember how explicitly that's referred to, but I love that setting. I love that there's no cell phones. I love that it feels timeless in its way, despite that. It's not really calling attention to the period. It just feels like a fable of sorts, almost post-apocalyptic, kind of on the edges of that. But two really great performances from Taylor Russell and Timothée Chalamet, and Mark Rylance is great in this. Can be very scary. But I really dug this movie, and this 4K looks really nice. It is a 4K presentation from the original Elements, whatever that means. Now, I can't remember if this was shot on film or digital, but this transfer looks good, and this has got Dolby Atmos audio, and now this is where it lets me down a little bit, because it's using what are basically promotional elements as extras, and it ends up totaling about, 2.5 minutes, 1.5, so that's 4, 6, less than 10 minutes of features, and some of it is a little repetitive because they're using some of the same bites. You'll hear Timothée Chalamet say some of the same things in different features, but these are not meant to be extras. These are meant to be promotional featurettes. So we have one called A Look Inside. That's about 2.5 minutes, and that has the cast and director, basically telling the story of the film, right? And then we have Luca Guadagnino, the Vision of Bones and All, which is about 1.5 minutes, and that has Taylor Russell, Timothée Chalamet, and Luca talking about why they were drawn to the project. Timothy saying it's the second time he worked with Luca, because of course he worked with him previously on Call Me By Your Name, but this was his first time developing a project with the director, and he's a producer on the movie, so that's kind of cool. And both Taylor and Timothy talk about working with Luca and their, what they enjoy about that. And Luca says something about the wanderer, the road, the frontier. It's connected with America, which is true. And so this has that sense of those other American road movies, like a Badlands or something like that, whether that's intentional or not. I feel like the vibe is there for sure. Another little featurette called Meet Lee, which is about 2 minutes, and this focuses on Timothée Chalamet and his character Lee. So it's him talking about the movie from his point of view, and then Taylor talking about him, and Luca talking about him, and Mark Rylance talking about Timothy and what it was like to work with him. And then they have Meet Marin, which is 1.5 minutes, which is the same as the above, except with Taylor Russell being spoken of by the other director and cast and stuff. And that stuff's great. But again, it's all, pretty fluffy ultimately. And then there's one called Outsiders in Love, which is very similar to A Look Inside. It's just under 2 minutes. Lucas says it's a film about the possibility of love. That's one of the things he says. But it is more of Luca, Taylor, and Timothy describing the film and stuff like that. So again, I would love even just a new interview with Luca would have been great. But clearly, and I get it, I understand these are businesses, they have bottom lines, and to do those things costs more money. And so they kind of just took what they had. Obviously not just that, because they have to get the 4K scan, and I don't know if they had that done or what. But regardless, I think it's a nice addition to the Scream Factory collection. I like that they are keeping an eye on contemporary horror cinema and bringing that into the fold, along with all the 80s and 90s classics that we love. They're really making it about the brand and sort of the longevity of the brand, and just here's good horror, here's a good movie. So good to have this out. Good looking 4K. I do like that the 4K and the Blu-ray are different. One is Timothy, one is Taylor. That's kind of neat. And I don't think, it's not a reversible wrap. But yeah, so Bones and All, definitely recommend for the movie. I wish it had more extras, but c'est la vie. Anyway, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.